President Trump advancing his economic agenda focused on growth, job creation, and working to bring down costs and the cost of living as the White House looks toward 2026 and the high-stakes midterm election season. Vice President J.D. Vance in Pennsylvania yesterday highlighting the president's achievements and progress on wages and investment, asking voters to stay the course as the policies take hold. I spoke with the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent here on the program yesterday. He said the U.S. is entering 2026 with strong economic momentum. Watch this.
2026 is going to be a bountiful year. We have very good momentum coming into next year. The economy is broadening out. There are so many parts to that that are kicking in. We've had 15% uptake in capital expenditure. Capital expenditure historically always leads to job growth. We had the president fulfilled his promises to working Americans. So I am very optimistic that for working Americans, for job growth, for capital formation.
President Trump will address the nation tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern live from the Oval Office. He will lay out his economic priorities for the year ahead. Joining me now is White House Senior Counselor for Trade and Manufacturing, Peter Navarro. Peter, it's great to see you. Welcome back.
Great to be with you, Maria.
I know you've got an op-ed in the Financial Times on Mexico and China. We're going to get to that in a moment. But let's stay where we are here in terms of what you just heard from the Treasury Secretary. As we close the books on 2025, there are still two major decisions that we're waiting on. As you know, the Supreme Court decision on President Trump's emergency use of tariffs and who will be the next chairman of the Federal Reserve. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told me yesterday these decisions will happen in early January. We were actually expecting them this week. Peter, what are your thoughts on the potential outcome if the court limits or upholds those tariffs?
It would be very bad for this country. If the Supreme Court wants to support the tariffs, they certainly will be on the right side of the law on this, Maria. The two big issues is a tariff a tax. It's not. Is a tariff a form of import regulation under the law? It is. These facts are indisputable, and that's what the case hinges on. And certainly it's a national emergency that China's killing us with fentanyl. And of course, you and I for years have talked about the corrosive effect of our trade deficit on our national security by offshoring our manufacturing and defense industrial base. So the Supreme Court has all the facts before it. I was very encouraged by the oral arguments. I thought that there were a lot of very good and probing questions on point. The judges seem to have a command of the issues. Yep. So as the boss says, let's see what happens. But it would be an extraordinary denial, particularly in light of the incredible success of the policies. Yeah. We are able, through the policies, to negotiate better deals for the American people that enhance our national security. We are collecting billions and billions of dollars of revenue that help us claw back all the damage that's done until we get the trade deficit down. So that money is a way to encourage our allies in China and the rest to stop screwing us, if I might be crude there. And you know, it's unimaginable yet at the White House. Of course, we imagine the alternatives, and we are prepared if that comes. But anything we'll do will be second best to what we have. It's a beautiful thing the president has done. So
second best, meaning do you believe that the president has enough alternatives just in case to recoup that money, the tariff revenue, if in fact he needs to use different statutes to actually get that revenue that he had? I'm talking $200 billion or something so far, close to $300 billion.
I mean, the issue isn't recouping the money, Maria. The issue is how do we best defend ourselves against the mercantilism of the world? Okay. I mean, you and I for years have talked about how China engages in its 7 deadly mercantilist sins. But every country in the world that's a major trading partner that we run a major deficit with, it's like fingerprints. They all screw us in their own ways. You know, it's Europe with the VAT. It's Japan with the non-tariff barriers.
Very good point, yeah.
It's the this, the that. It's the transshipping that's coming out of Cambodia and Vietnam and everything in between. And I mean, you and I understand as well as the boss better than anyone just how thoroughly these countries take us apart. Yeah. And we're in a perilous situation, and the Supreme Court, it's useful to remind them of it. I mean, we don't have resilient, secure supply chains that will protect us in times of conflict, and our economic security is in great peril right now because of that. President Trump is doing everything he can to bring those jobs and factories onshore. It takes time, but the things that are taking place now all point in the direction of a strong, secure America if President Trump is able to continue to use tariffs as a national security measure under IEEPA.
Yeah, stakes are really high, and you're right. The president told me recently it's all coming back because he is directing corporate America to make sure to get their supply chains here or pay up for it. And I would add to your list the Europeans and their digital tax, right? You've got the digital tax that Europe puts on our tech companies. Let's get to your op-ed because you have been writing about how Mexico is imposing new tariffs on Chinese goods. This is a big deal, and how it reflects a broader shift among U.S. allies. So walk us through why this is significant, what it says about the direction of President Trump's 2026 trade agenda as we look at your op-ed in the Financial Times saying Mexico's China tariffs show the rise of Trump's trade template.
So what President Trump understands is this three-dimensional chess that's known as the international trading system. In the beginning, the president imposes protection, defensive tariffs on the world, right? But starting with China with the 301s. Now, how does China respond? Instead of dumping a lot of product here, they're stuck with a bunch of product, so they begin dumping it all over the world. Mexico has been a primary target, Europe, but it's Africa and Latin America. So what we've been doing as the trade team with Jameson Greer, Howard Lutnick leading the way in these negotiations is pointing out to countries like Mexico and continents like Europe that, hey, if you're going to have a prosperous economy and all this is going to work, you've got to develop the same kind of tariff protections as we put them in. It's essentially a global tariff wall against mercantilism, and in this case, the mercantilism of China. So what we saw last week, which is an epiphany for the world, is the Mexican Senate voting to impose tariffs which are roughly similar to the levels we have on China. And Europe, as we speak, is adopting similar measures. They've already imposed tough measures on China against steel, on EVs. Right. And what it's showing, Maria, to all of those out there in your audience and the rest of this country is that President Trump, we're not doing this alone. Okay? Yeah. This is a global push, and that's the epiphany of the article in the Financial Times, that this is a coordinated global strategy. And I think the most important part of the piece, Maria, is talking directly to China. Yeah, I've been saying this for more than 10 years, that China, if it's going to be a good neighbor and prosper in this world, rather than creating conflict, it has to create a social safety net for its people so that they save less and consume more. It's extraordinary, Maria, that a communist country, a people's republic, has virtually no pension or health care benefits for their people. It's absurd. It's absurd. And what that does is it forces the people of China, the hardworking, the Lao Beijing, as Steve Bannon likes to call them, the working class, the MAGA folks of China, they've got to save upwards of 50% or more. They don't consume, and so the Chinese Communist Party exports to the world and steals our jobs in factories and weakens us and everybody else around. Well, so that's the importance of that piece, and I'm glad that you've pointed it out to Wall Street. If if I may, Maria,
Yeah.
I want to point out one historical thing today. I don't know if you remember this, but on your wonderful program, Sunday Morning Futures, on April 6th of this year, the Dow was down. It dripped below 40,000. There was all the tariff hysteria.
Yes, that's right. That was the tariff hysteria,
It was like at 38,000. And what did I do? I predicted 50,000 on the Dow.
That's
and
right,
what we're saying is this stuff takes time. And where we're at, we're in striking distance now of 50,000 on the Dow. I did the same thing on Election Day in 2016. I said we'd hit 25,000. And I point this out. People got to be patient with the Trump agenda. It's a Main Street agenda. Main Street's going to hear from the boss tonight.
All right, Peter, great to talk with you. I know your op-ed is important, and it sounds like you think other countries will take a cue from Mexico as well and hold China's feet to account. Good to see you this morning,
It's great to see you, Maria.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Peter Navarro.